All right, welcome back. Now we're getting into our deep dive with our guest today, British HODL. Britt, I want to start at the beginning. You started out in gold, equities, and real estate. You mentioned a little bit about it earlier. I mean, kind of the holy trinity of boomer assets, if you will. Tell us a little bit more about how you were eventually pulled away from all of that and decided to go all in on Bitcoin. Like, how were you introduced to Bitcoin? Was this your own research? Was it like your buddy told you about it and then you started diving in? Give us that line. What was that orange pill story like for you?
Yeah, you're kind of always around new and emerging assets when you're involved in investments, but I just always thought Bitcoin was a scam. Small group of highly capable investors that I surround myself with and have for years always thought it was a scam. And then during the 2019 flu season, worldwide flu season that we had, a friend of mine called me while I was walking around a park in London, and he said, "All right, I don't want you to speak until you hear everything I'm gonna say. Uh, I'm about to allocate to Bitcoin, and as I'm about to, send him some expletives, he says we're not going to talk until you've listened to the Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous." And then hung up on me. So I'm on Audible. Like I download the book and start listening to it. And it was the next day when I got to the part of the book that started talking about the idea of stock to flow, not the stock to flow price model or anything like that, but just the idea of applying stock to flow to Bitcoin. And having a gold background at that time, I kind of had this moment where the matrix sort of lined up, and I realized that I was completely looking at Bitcoin the wrong way. I was looking at it like an equity, and I should have looked at it as a commodity. And the moment that happened, all panic set in. The scarcity argument made absolute sense. And I downloaded my Coinbase account that I actually had already because a few years earlier I had, bought a bit of Bitcoin sitting in a cigar lounge, sold it 2 weeks later after doubling my money, and spent it on cigars. So I downloaded that Coinbase account immediately as I was walking home and started wiring funds to buy Bitcoin. I probably moved 20 or 30%. This was probably in March or April of 2020. Moved 20 or 30% of my gold position by May, and by November, all of the gold was gone.
So that's an interesting story, and I would love to get your perspective then, as someone who was into gold, got into Bitcoin. You had a great friend who made you listen to everything you had to say. We all deserve a friend like that. Where do you stand in terms of like gold right now? Like it sounds like you have removed everything from gold. It's all in the Bitcoin. Where do you see gold going? Because it's at all-time highs right now. Are we going to see that trend continue, or is Bitcoin slowly but surely going to continue eating some of Bitcoin or gold's lunch for it? Where do you see it going?
Yeah, I highly regret selling all of my gold and buying Bitcoin at an average of $5,000 a coin just 5 years ago. And now that gold is up like what, 50%. I so regret it. Like every day the gold price keeps going up. I'm just regretting selling all of that gold and buying Bitcoin at $5,000 a coin. It's just one of the biggest regrets of my damn life.
Yeah, you seem really, really broken up about it. But now you've made that transition from gold to orange and you're preaching the gospel. And one of the big things I saw when I was doing my due diligences is you've made this kind of idea of creating whole coiners very much part of your mission. So my question
Yep.
to you is, Britt, why focus on that milestone? Like, what's so powerful about convincing people to own just one full Bitcoin?
Yeah, look, when I understood Bitcoin, the next few days I spent talking to people who I cared about. And one of the, my parents, I care about them a lot. I think they've done the right thing. They immigrated to the United Kingdom. Um, they followed all the rules. They built a property portfolio to take care of their two sons. And then every single year, they just get the rug pulled out from underneath them with the amount of money that's printed, and how how property is also a very, very controlled asset in terms of supply. And I
Yeah.
was walking around this park and I'm looking at it backs on, all these houses around the park back onto the park. And I was just thinking like every single one of these people is screwed. And so, when I started thinking about Bitcoin and getting into Bitcoin and looking at Bitcoin content, what I realized was there's a lot of people trying to take care of poor people in Bitcoin. The issue that I saw was that the wealth that's actually being held by people like my parents, the $500,000 to $30 million net worth person, was not being spoken to.
Hmm.
And these are the people that actually have the biggest problem because it's all well and good saying, you're broke, you've got, $1,000 of net worth. Maybe you should get into Bitcoin. That's cool. And it made a big difference to people, but there was enough people covering that. What wasn't being explained was if you've got $5 million or $10 million in real estate, why you need Bitcoin. And my goal was always to save people like my parents. There was always enough beautiful content being created trying to help, the person who wants to save 50, 60, $100 a month into Bitcoin and DCA. My goal was on a different target, and I want to help the people that have sacrificed their entire life to build a property portfolio or an equity portfolio or build a business to take care of their families, done the right thing, been